It is my great honour to introduce Elma Walsh to speak to us this evening. Thank you, Elma.
Thank you, everybody. I don't think anyone would have heard of either Finbar or myself if our son didn't speak out 6 years ago, asking young people to appreciate their lives when and while they had it. Firstly, I suppose I better set a short picture of Donal. One of the first things he asked of me after he was diagnosed terminal in October 2012 was to make sure he received Holy Communion every day, and that he would get dressed and out of the house every day. And he did this for the 7 months he lived with terminal cancer, up to 2 days before he died. And the first thing he did for himself was make a fake ID. Well, I'll tell you, when I questioned him about that, he said, "Mom, think about it. I'm not going to be in here in 2 years' time. I'm not going to be 18 to get to see the inside of a nightclub or to experience all that I should." Now, how could I argue with that? That's just a short synopsis of the character of Donal. He was a boy of faith, and he understood what it was to be a teenager in today's world. But also, while he knew he wouldn't have too long in this world, he had life and hope in his life. In a speech made by Robert Kennedy 53 years ago, he said, "It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a person stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centres of energy, and daring those ripples to build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." I feel Donal took a few blocks off those walls of oppression and resistance for people with confused and disorientated thoughts and suicidal feelings, and also for people who were afraid to speak out about their faith. I was asked here tonight to speak about hope and life, and funnily enough, my opening point when I go to visit schools is hope. I start off by saying hope, by its very definition, is a feeling and an expectation and a desire for a particular thing to happen. You know, you wish, you plan, you dream, you daydream. And really, isn't that what we all do? Not just the teenagers we talk with. With hope in our lives, we strive to improve not just our lives, but the lives of others. There must always be life and hope in our lives, because without one, the other would cease to exist. From visiting an average of 4 schools a week around Ireland, we see there is real reason for hope in Ireland. And it is today's teenagers that keep asking us to speak in their schools or events. We've been asked back an average of 4 times to most schools. It was nearly 3,000 of today's teenagers that came to Knock to celebrate his 6th anniversary Mass a month ago, and 2,500 attended last year. They relate to Donal in a variety of ways. They see he looked and dressed and spoke the same as them. They're impressed with the way he spoke about his faith. They see what mattered to Donal and how he wanted young people to appreciate their lives, as he said himself on television, not just mentally, but to appreciate life in general. How he wanted what was best for them and how he wanted them to live caring and healthy lives into old age. People often ask me, how did Donal say what he did? And where did he get the courage at just 16 to speak out about suicide, faith, life and acceptance, topics many an adult would shy away from discussing? My reply usually is education and faith. Donal's faith gave him the confidence to write those 2 letters that brought him to prominence. Faith was a huge part of his life. Even speaking publicly on the Saturday night show with Brendan O'Connor, he said, "It's a huge part of my life and I wouldn't be here today without it." A local journalist, after meeting Donal, said, "In the 20 years of journalism, I have rarely, if ever, been affected as much by any encounter." The journalist continued, "The best way I tried to describe Donal was that I didn't feel he was in this world. His aura, his presence made you feel he was in this world, but not of it. This may sound odd, but that's how it was, and that's how it remains. He interviewed Donal on his own and asked him about his faith. After he interviewed him, he said it all made sense. Donal Walsh loved God. He had tremendous faith, and it was his well of strength. In his own writings, Donal said, "It still felt like a mountain I couldn't climb. Nonetheless, God has given me hiking boots, so I might as well start climbing. I have to remember that God is using me, whether he's using me as a symbol for people to appreciate life, or whether his first 2 mountains weren't high enough for me. All I know is that I'm walking with him, even though it's along his path." Donal spoke openly about his faith, and I think that's what attracted people to Donal, and still attract people to Donal. Education is a powerful tool, not just in schools where teenagers can learn from teachers and their peers, and it is an excellent model of education. But education in the home must be the greatest form of learning, from life's challenges, loves, hopes, and dreams. It should never be left solely to teachers to educate our youth. They really have enough to do with the students in their class. Young people learn from what they see every day, from participating, the witness of others, engaging effectively, from being given opportunities to learn, and from being praised, and given the space to make mistakes. It's only from engaging, participating, and making mistakes that we learn. Learning every day is not just for the young. We are all students of how to live well until the day that we die. I know many people here are saddened by the loss of last year's referendum, but we should never become disheartened, and we can never lose hope. There are signs from other countries that the tide can turn back in favour of respect for life. With hope in our hearts, we must strive to become even better witnesses for life in new and inspiring ways. I'm very pleased to hear of the Future Leaders programme that the Pro-Life campaign is starting for young people, to equip them to present the case for life in this challenging and ever-changing world. With the result of the recent referendum come a lot of opportunities to educate our young people about abortion and life, and about being allowed to live all your life. In a recent study, the Department of Health in England did a complete U-turn. Despite maintaining their denial of fetal pain up to a few months ago, they now state that a fetus does feel pain. As human beings, we all have the right to life, and the right to live it up to the last day we naturally pass away. Having the privilege of watching and nursing Donal up to the day he died showed me not only how delicate and precious life is, but also how to live life, to be brave enough to get out there and speak out about the really important things in life. If Donal, at 16 and living with terminal cancer, could speak about what mattered, what excuses have I or any of us here? It is in living and expressing your life to its full potential that you show example to the youth. One example I've used of Donal squeezing as much out of life is when he was diagnosed in October 2012. He was told, "You have weeks, you may have months, but you certainly won't have a year to live. You won't be here this time next year." And roll on 7 months later to the 1st of May 2013, and he was upstairs in bed, and he shouted down to me, "Mum, come up quick." And I ran up those stairs with my heart in my mouth. And when I got there, he was there lying in his pillows, and he said to me, "Mum, do you know what day today is?" And I said, "No." He said, "Mum, today is the first day of summer." Fuck the doctors, I made it to the summer. He was weak and in pain, but he beat the odds. And shouldn't we all be given a chance to beat the odds? Talking with his doctors after, they said he got an extra 3 months out of life through his determination to live. I know Donal had no fear of dying. In fact, in some aspects, I'd go as far as saying he looked forward to the conversation he'd had with God. And I tell you, I'd love to be the fly in that wall, because God would be answering some tough questions and probably still is. But he just really wanted to live. And he said one time to me, when he was in a wheelchair, "Mum, I'd live with all the pain if I could just live till I was 80. The odds were against Donal, but what time he was given, he used it and tried to use it to try and improve the quality of life for his friends, the people of Tralee, teenagers, and with the help of RTE, the people of Ireland. In today's world, And here in Ireland, education has some challenges. The internet can be used very effectively and for great good, but the use of the internet by both adults and young people has to be monitored by parents and also by oneself. We all know it's part of the future and it won't be going away. But by educating an example, we can teach people how to use it effectively and for great purpose. More and more people are spending way too much time on it, playing games or going to various platforms of social media to ensure that they're up to date with what their friends are doing. Back in the day, what we called gossip. This leads to loss of sleep, a key factor in maintaining good mental health. It also leads to loss of communication, mood swings, loneliness, and a loss of real friends. By educating, we can ensure that the trend of spending long hours on the internet could be curtailed, while also ensuring that people are getting out there and socially interacting with family, friends, and communities. Personally, I fear for the loss of communication in our youth. And by that I mean the quick wit, the banter, and they're the things that I miss about Donal. He had that in spades. Young people have a natural ability to learn and communicate, and it is this that must be nurtured in the natural way of life. In my eulogy at Donal's funeral, I started by saying Abraham Lincoln once said, "It's not the years in your life that counts, it's the life in your years." If we can encourage our young people, the future of Ireland, to invest in education, faith, and responsible communication at a very young age for the years in their lives, I feel we'll have a more confident, more informed, tolerant, and more creative teenager in the Ireland of the future. With every new day comes new life, new hopes, new thoughts, new strengths, and these are theirs for the taking. Going forward, it's up to us as adults and parents and guardians to ensure that they have every opportunity to use these tools for the greater good of humanity. This generation has the opportunity to progress in a confident, meaningful, and positive way into the future that we could have only dreamed of. This is our jobs as parents and guardians. We're not meant to be their friends. It's up to us to set boundaries and encourage them to speak out with truth, clarity, and to stand up for their beliefs. We as adults will have failed them if we do not guide and encourage their education, their faith, and their hope in the future and the future of Ireland. We must encourage parents and guardians to take on this responsibility in a serious and proactive way, from the child's first steps on into adulthood. They will thank us if we do it right. And now, because Kerry won the Munster final tonight, had to get that in, I will read one of those letters that Donal came to prominence with. Now, he wrote these letters 6 months before he passed away, and he thought they would have more of an effect after he died. But luckily enough, there was a higher power there that knew that they would have more of an effect by Donal going on television. And this is one of the letters that he wrote. You have to think of Kerry when you listen to this letter. I live in a part of the world that's surrounded by mountains. I can't turn my head without finding a bloody hill or a mountain. And I suppose those were God's plans for me, to have me grow up around mountains and grow climbing a few too. And that's exactly what I've done. I may have grown up in body around them, but I have fully grown and matured in mind climbing his mountains. He's had me fight cancer 3 times, face countless deaths and losses in my life. He's had my childhood dreams taken from me. But at the end of the day, he's made me a man. I'm always called brave, heroic, kind, genuine, honourable, and so many other kind compliments. But I have to try and explain to everyone why I seem to reject them. I have never fought for anyone but myself. Therefore, I cannot be brave or heroic. I've only been kind because my religion has taught me so. And what impact would I ever have in the world if I was fake? Or how would I ever be honourable if I was not honoured to be here? I am me. There is no other way of putting it. Little old Donal Walsh from Tralee. One body, one mind, and a few other cobwebs and tails thrown in. I've climbed God's mountains, faced many struggles from my life, and dealt with so much loss. And as much as I'd love to go around to every fool on this planet and open their eyes to the mountains that surround them in life, I can't. But maybe if I shout for mine, they'll pay attention. If I start to accept these compliments, I'm afraid of what I'll become. Will I be braver than ye? Will I be kinder than ye? More genuine than ye? Better than ye? No. I can never accept there is a ye. We are all the same. We're all given one body and one mind. The only difference for me is that I'm looking from the mountain. Donal Walsh. Thank you.